Peace. Welcome to Alchemy Soul, a space for honest conversations about transformation, spiritual awakening, and the messy process of becoming who you really are. I am your host, Marquita, and I am super grateful to have you all here with me today. Y'all, today I am feeling especially grateful. I always wake up with feeling good and in a space of gratitude. A lot of times I am reflecting on how far God has brought me, how far Spirit has brought me, however you want to say it. For the purposes of how I normally speak, I will say Spirit. But I am so surprised sometimes, like how far Spirit has brought me. And the reason why I say that is because, if you have listened to any of my other episodes up until this point, but if you have not, I have not worked a traditional 9 to 5 position consistently, like since 2019. And that position that I held, that last position that I held in 2019, and the mindset that I held with that position was that I had to do this and that there was no other way for me to make a living outside of working this 9 to 5 position. And in hindsight, fast forward all the way to 2026, here we are, and it is been proven to me that I can make money from being my most authentic self. And that is what we are going to talk about today. We are going to talk about the journey of being your most authentic self and allowing that to be the catalyst for you making money. It took me a long time to get to a point where I finally could accept it. Although Spirit had been pushing me to it the whole time. And I will, kind of tell you some of the things that I experienced over the course of, the last 7 years, and just a trigger warning. Like, I have to warn you all, like, I'm going to be talking about suicidal ideations today, because that was a lot of it. I remember 2019, that happened. I was fine. I was doing well. I was really motivated. At that time, between 2019 and 2020, I was sort of dipping my toe into various things. And I was just trying out different things and trying to, figure out different ways in order to make money. And so essentially, by the time 2020 came, money was not flowing, but what I did have was a business, and what I also had was the pandemic on my side. And like many of us, we took advantage of all of the quote unquote pandemic benefits that were put out there. And so I always used to say, like, when that happened, I think that was the first time that, well, not the first time, because I'm very much conscious of how God moves in my life, how Spirit moves. But I remember thinking to myself, like, Spirit will move heaven and earth, literally will move heaven and earth to get you what you need. And because I know that, it was a huge blessing in my life, not only a huge blessing in my life, but into so many other people's lives. And of course, it came at a detriment of, many other businesses as well as many people's lives, right? But if you just think about the collective all and think about the universal energy, right? Things will move for you. Period. Things will always move for you. It's the reason why I always say everything is always working out for you, because heaven and earth can be moved for you, quote unquote, heaven and earth, right? Um, and so in 2020, that, you know, gave me the opportunity to have the income that I needed to, start living my life nomadically. And so, um, that was the first time where I had decided, I'm going to live my life for me and I'm going to do this because it's what I really wanted to do. So fast forward, I get pregnant, I had the baby. After the baby, that's when things began to get a little bit dark, for various reasons. Of course, my daughter's dad and we split up, and even during that time, we had a bit of like some hardship and like some financial hardship. And what ended up happening was I ended up having to go, and me and my daughter, we went and lived with family, which was a blessing, like it was a blessing because I didn't have to pay any rent. It was a blessing because I was supported and I wasn't forced to do anything besides learn how to be a new mother. And, but during that time, I definitely experienced some postpartum depression. And that was, a very scary time in my life where I didn't know or fully understand if I was going to make it out. And I remember sitting, one evening, my daughter, she was just crying and crying and crying. And this was before we did sleep training, and she was still sleeping in the room with me, but um, she was still in the pack and play. And so, I remember one day, I just was in the bathroom and I was crying and crying and crying. And I'm like, I'm not going to make it or whatever. My godmother, she came into the bathroom and she like just consoled me. She hugged me. She told me that everything was going to be okay. She gave me words of encouragement that pretty much was like kind of comparing other situations to my situations, which is not always helpful, because everybody's individual situation is different. And so we can't, we have to be mindful that we don't assume that somebody will make it out just because somebody else has a worse situation. Like everybody's situation is valid. And so my situation was valid for myself. But in that moment, I knew what she meant, right? We understand the intention. And so I didn't think that I was going to make it out. But we sat and she hugged me and she consoled me. And, she told me, like, hey, you don't have to worry about anything. I'm giving you 2 years. She was like, you can be here for 2 years. And just knowing that I had that safe haven and that I didn't have anything to worry about calmed my nerves. And so, fast forward, I thought that I was ready to move abroad. And I was so ready because I'm like, I want to keep on the path that I was on. I'm ready to live my dreams. Da 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 da. So in 2023, that's when I first moved abroad. I mean, my daughter moved to Thailand. And during that time, by the time I got over there and figured out everything, that I was going through and processing emotionally, I realized that I was still in postpartum depression. So I came back, and then I took my daughter back to her dad, and then I went to Colombia. In Colombia, that is where I came face to face with myself on so many levels. It was like highs and lows, highs and lows. And even if I think about it, like, I don't really, I don't have too much knowledge of like what bipolar would look like, but I feel like those were signs of what could have been bipolar, because I had so many highs of like, wow, like I'm here in another country. I'm doing it, I'm living it, I'm free, but so many lows where I was so lonely. I was so like, I had so many dark thoughts. I was, stressing myself out, trying to figure out how am I going to make this a reality. And yeah, like it was like I I was just, I don't know, I was just going through a lot. And so when I came back, I came back to the States. I came back. Something that kept coming up for me was this speaking, right? Like this allowing myself to be seen, allowing myself and my journey to be put, in the light. And a lot of times when I think back on the moments where it was like the darkest, I said at that time I was going through the dark night of the soul. And I don't know if any of you all are familiar with the dark night of the soul, but it is a very dark process, in the spiritual journey where essentially your shadows are trying to be brought into the light. Like, and during the dark night of the soul, a lot of things occur. So you will lose your home, you lose your house, you lose your friends, you'll start losing, like, things are like, feel like they're burning to the ground essentially. um and your mind, like your mindset, your belief systems are switching and changing rather rapidly, but you're still trying to, what makes it so hard is because you're still trying to hold on to an old version of yourself that has, that has essentially burned down or burned away. And so 2023 to 2024, I really want to say 2023 to like 2025, I experienced like several depressive episodes, several thoughts of like suicidal ideation. I specifically remember when I was going through the dark night of the soul, oh my gosh, I cried and I cried and I cried and I cried. Like, I shed some tears, baby. Listen, I was praying. I'm like, please break me out of this. Please, give me some positive energy. Luckily, I was couch surfing, so I really didn't have my daughter like every day. She was staying with her dad. And so I I just I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. And what happened was I was having a hard time, but I was also having a hard time financially because I wasn't working. And I was couch surfing. So I didn't have like a way to like have my own space, which is important for me because I like to do different spiritual hygiene rituals and so on and so forth. So um what ended up happening was 2023, I was staying with my daughter's father up until he put me out. Like, I wouldn't say he put me out, but he just told me that he gave me a date and he said that I had to be out by that date. And so I left. So having to deal with that, that's a very traumatic experience as well that I've had to learn how to heal from, because how can, how can I just gave birth to your daughter, like, but you putting me out, you know what I'm saying? But I didn't, I, that's his choice and that's his decision. And of course, I got on my feet, like eventually. But it wasn't like I was going to get on my feet the next day. And so it came with a lot of pressure of expectations of being a specific kind of mother. And it came with the expectations of me doing different things or sacrificing different things in order to be a mother, right? So, of course, everybody from the outside looking in, they're like, well, why you not gonna get no job? Why you not getting no job, girl? And I applied for jobs. I applied for job after job. I applied for so many jobs, y'all. Like I applied for jobs. I'm talking about all kinds of jobs. Jobs at the gas station, jobs at the restaurants, jobs in retail. I mean, I'm talking about the bare minimum all the way up to like your directors, your program managers, because the last position, that I held was a program manager. I was a program manager at a nonprofit. And so I'm talking about ranges. And of course they can't see that, but all they can go off of is my word. I've applied. Um, and so I got a job. I did get a job. But it just didn't feel right. And I don't know what to say about that part because I probably could have stuck through it for some period of time for whatever reason, but it didn't feel right. And so I quit. I used it for what I needed to use it for. I used it to get a car, and I got a car, and then I quit. Um, excuse me. But after that, like, I just went through a very dark time. And so I want to read something to you all that I just wrote this year, right? Like I just wrote this year. So that means that I've been dealing with, depression, major depressive disorder, and suicidal ideations for years at this point. Last year, I don't remember 2025, I don't remember experiencing any super depressive episodes. But I do know that when I came back to Atlanta this time, and I was like, oh, this is an Atlanta thing. I had to like check myself. But when I came back to Atlanta this time, I do remember when I first got back here, I was very depressed. I was very sad. I was crying. And I just was like, I can't believe I'm back here. What am I doing here? And like, this is not, what am I doing here? And how is this going to help me progress and elevate and evolve? And so I'm going to read you all something that I wrote. Um, um, I said, to whoever finds this, I am tired. I am defeated. This experience is not pleasant, and I do not want to do it anymore. It says, please make sure my work is known. 2 books ready to be published on my laptop, and I gave the information for the password. And then I said, please allow Divine, which is my daughter, to know that I did all I could. And I said, I kept trying to save myself. And y'all, I literally, so I just sat down to, talk to you all about, making sure that your gifts are, that you are living in your gifts and living in your purpose and living authentically. But this page came up before I sat down. And I'm like, it's a reason, and it's all connected, right? Because I know my journey. I know that what I'm doing now is healing me. And I know that what I'm doing right now is what Spirit has been calling me to do the entire time. And if, right, like, It's a reason why I'm always, up until this point, the entire time I've been like, I'm proud of myself. I'm staying consistent, and affirming myself in this kind of way because, you guys, when I was not utilizing my gifts and walking in purpose and doing it consistently, I feel like I was being put through the ringer. I feel like God and my spirit, like I feel like it was a battle, constant battle. I mean, talking about like why I could not for the life of me understand why. I'm like, I'm such a good person. I always think like my heart is so pure, I'm so giving, I'm so loving, like because I know how I am. And I always just ask, well, why am I going through so much? But I had to go through these things, right? I had to go through all of this in order to come face to face with my ego and say, it's not, you can't keep me safe no more. I have to allow myself to be seen. You can't keep me in this cage anymore. I have a lot more life to live. I have a lot more things to experience. I want to travel the world. I want to travel the world. I want to speak on stages. I want my work, my books, my talents to be known. And then it came down to, it's not for you. It's not for you. I had to come back to Atlanta. I had to come back to Atlanta because Atlanta birthed the spiritual, conscious voice. The woman that I am today, Atlanta gave birth to this woman. However, Atlanta also gave me a lot of grief. It gave me a lot of shame. It gave me a lot of it taught me, how to hide. It all of these things. But now I had to come back so I can, I wrote this. I wrote this in Atlanta. I've only been here 3.5 months, y'all. I wrote this when I first got here because I was so depressed and I was so like, I just was not doing good. I was in a dark place. I was ready to like, I remember, I was like, I'm putting a plan in place. I do not want to do this anymore. I'm like, I remember always thinking like, if I have to go on and endure this much pain as I continue to go on in years and years and years, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. But it had to come down to me realizing that the only way that I was going to truly live and live my life for me and not for nobody else. I live my life for me. And the only way that that was going to occur was for me to allow my voice to be heard, allow myself to be seen, allow myself to put my gifts and my talents out into the world. And I have been, you guys, like I have been. But now the consistency has become so spiritual that I see it every single time I sit down. I'm doing a 365-day long form content challenge on YouTube if you're interested in following or checking it out. My name over there is Alchemy Soul with 2 U's in soul. But like, you guys, like, if I wouldn't have sat down, if I wouldn't have heard spirit that night be like, girl, you don't need the video. You don't need the video. All you need is your voice. If I didn't hear that, I don't know if I would still even be here. Because I want to say the next day is when I was like, oh, let me sit down and record this podcast. I don't need a video right now. Nobody need to see me today. All I need to do is hear what I have to say, and that's enough. And so for anybody that's out there listening right now today, I'm telling you this: life can and will be so much better, so much more rewarding when you start allowing your gifts to be seen and allowing yourself to be heard and felt. If you are not utilizing your gifts, if you are not utilizing the talents that God has given you, you came here with a purpose. I believe that every single person that walks this earth has gifts and talents that that they need to use and that they are meant to express out into the universe. You are doing us all a disservice with you hiding them. You are doing yourself a disservice by hiding them. I wake up every day now and I ask Spirit, baby, what you want me to talk about today? And that's what I say. I sit and I meditate. And before I go into meditation, I'll ask, what do you want me to talk about today? Because I know I can talk about something every single day and I can talk about it for hours. Because that's just the amazing life that I have been given. But if you are not allowing your gifts and your talents to be expressed out into the universe, it is time. It is time. And there is no greater time than now. Allow yourself to be seen. We need it. My mentor, she said in one of her videos, she was like, she believes that our purpose, every single person's purpose here in this time and space is to be a healer. Everybody is a healer. Now, how you are healing depends upon your specific passions and gifts and talents, right? My passion and gift and talent of speaking and writing is different from the painter. It's different from the singer. It's different from the doctor, right? Like these things that we are giving, they are meant to be utilized by everybody. So you can't hoard it. You can't keep it to yourself. You can't we need it. And when I realized that it's not about me, I realized that it wasn't about me. And I had to sit after I got fired from that last position. I had to sit and realize like the connection and the lesson behind why I was not meant to do that position. I had to look at what my ego was saying. And I had to look at what Spirit was saying. And I mean, Spirit was loud about that. It was no ifs, ands, or buts. Like that whole situation, it was loud because it spoke through my body, right? I knew it in my body before anything ever happened. And so I started saying last year, God, I want for you what you want for me. Whatever you want for me, I want that. Because I know that the things that I want for myself are far beyond. I already know the things that I want for myself are probably far, it's like what God wants for me is way bigger than what I want for myself, is what I'm trying to say. And so I started saying, like, God, I want for you, for me what you want for me, because I know that even in my creation and what I think I want for myself, there is another way. There's an easier path and there's a more abundant path. And so when I had that, mindset that I wanted to take on this position, even though Spirit was telling me not to. And I wanted to take on this position in order to buy a house so that I can have a house, so I can have, I wanted to buy the house, not for me to live in, but I wanted to have the house so that I could have income, like income from somebody renting it out, right? God was like, it's another way. And I truly do believe that, because I really don't care to actually be an owner of any property, at least not right now. And it's just so many lessons that came from that experience. But what I realized when I was assessing it all, it came down to a thing of ego led or spirit led, right? Like I had to discern between the two, and I had to look at what the ego wanted versus what spirit was guiding me towards. And in that, I realized, and what I kept saying is, it's not about you. It's not about you. It's not about me. This what I'm doing right now on this podcast, and what I'm doing in my 365-day long form content challenge, it is not about me. This is about whoever is on the receiving end of whatever I'm saying. 9 times out of 10, I'm not even looking or listening back to anything that I'm saying. I'm literally just talking. And so in that, you have to get to a point where you sit your ego to the side. Sit the ego to the side and say, I can do this imperfectly. Why? Because it's not about me. And why? Because the person who's perceiving it probably isn't perceiving it imperfectly how I am receiving it as being imperfect. The person who is receiving it probably is looking at this and hearing this and saying, this is perfect. I needed this today. Right? Like, we have to allow the ego to just soften. Just soften. The ego means good, right? It wants to keep you safe. It wants to keep you in what it knows. It doesn't mean, any harm. We need our ego to create in this time and space, period. But there has to also be space for spirit. There has to also be space for God, universal energies, because we are not the only things at play when it comes to this universal system. We are a small part to the equation. This is a co-creative reality. And because it is a co-creative reality, we have to make sure that we do our part, right? And you doing your part is allowing yourself to sit your ego to the side and say, hey, I got something to say, I got something to sing, I got something to speak, I got something to write, I got something to give out into this universe, and it's my time to do that now. I feel so good. I feel good. At the end of the day, I feel accomplished. For such a long period of time, I have felt stagnant. I have felt like I know I got something to say. I know my voice is strong. I know these words that I'm putting on this page, that I'm typing on this computer, I know that that is wisdom. Like, I know that it is. But it was just something in me that was a blockage. And I know. So I had already started doing the podcast, but something that was said and what has really, like, I'm about to start crying, y'all. Every single time. Every time. I just give God grace for this, like, life. But my mentor, her name is the Queen Poe, and she's with the wellness community. Shout out to the wellness community if any of you all are tuning in. Butterflies in the sky. um, But the Queen Poe, she is a mentor to us all in her community and everybody in her community. One day she said that she went on a podcast and they talked about the divine feminine energy. I think that's what the conversation was about. Oh, the age of Aquarius, the age of Aquarius. And Queen talked about how the age of Aquarius is in alignment with the divine feminine energy. And what we are seeing, is that women are trying to get back to like the creativity piece of it, but the creativity piece being like the leading parts of like reality. Those are not her exact words, but that's how I understood it. And so what she said was that those who are not living in their divine flow and in the divine energy, they feel stagnant. And that stagnancy also results in depression. It results in, sadness, darkness. And what she said was that those who are not able to express, they don't, because you would think that it would push you there, right? But if you cannot allow your ego to, be not silenced, but kind of quieted in the process and allow spirit to be the leader of you creating and putting your creations out, then that can result in you going into suicidal into it will result in you having suicidal ideations, and ultimately you can pretty much just get to a point where it's too much. And when she said that, I'm telling you all, I'm actually about to go back and listen to it. I'm about to go back and listen to it after I get done with this. But when she said it, it clicked for me. Everything that I had been experiencing up until like this point in time, it all clicks and like, oh yeah, that's what has been happening. That's what had happened. And now that's what I'm saying. Like at the end of the day, I feel so happy. I wake up with purpose because now I have something to look forward to. I go to bed feeling accomplished because I have, done this task that I set out and I've completed it. I've tapped into my creativity, which has allowed, some energy to flow. And yeah, this idea that I can get paid to be my most authentic self. Like, I don't have to live and do the traditional 9 to 5 as I've been taught as a child. All the way up until this point, I have been affirmed in the fact that I can get paid being my most authentic self. Now, the money has not always been flowing consistently, and it has not always been, what I want to say, like prosperous or like real, like a lot, like things have been tight. But what I would say is I've always been taken care of. I've always had what I needed, and I've always just had what I needed. And so I get paid to be my most authentic self. That is going to be my newest affirmation for myself every day, because I genuinely believe that this is the key to my most abundant life. I had to get out of my own way. I had to get out of my own way. And now I know that what I have to say is not for me. And just knowing that alone allows me to show up every day, because I ask spirit, hey, what do you want me to tell? What you want me to tell the people today? And that is what I have been supposed to, like, that is what I'm meant to do and what I have been called to do here in this time and space. And so, and that's all I got. That's all I got, you guys. If you all are interested in following me on my 365-day long form content challenge over on YouTube, my name over there is Alchemy Soul with 2 U's in the soul. I am going to be starting my nomad journey abroad here in about 14 days. So I'm excited for that and looking forward to that. And also, I'll be talking a little bit more in detail about that over there. As well as I have love offerings on my website. You can find that at myalchemysoul.com. And yeah, peace, love, and light. Until next week, y'all. I'll see y'all then.